Good day, everyone. I'm SANGIL from the Philippines, research lead of the Open Contracting Project of Layer Tech Labs in 2018 to 2019. And I will be sharing our work on how we use public procurement data to influence bidding and decision strategy in Albay, Philippines. Now, what is public procurement and why, of all topics, did we study procurement? First, government agencies have obligations to the public, right? And in order for government agencies to function, they need to acquire goods and services using public money or taxpayers' money, for example. For example, when they build roads, so they need to procure contractors, materials using public money. Now, an estimated of 15 to 30% of countries' GDP in general is spent on procurement alone. This makes procurement a major transaction between government and the private sector and making it prone to corruption and inefficiency. In fact, an estimated of 10 to 25% of each government contract's value is lost due to corruption. Now, if corruption or bribery happens in a transaction, one danger is the contractor will cut on the quality of the service delivery. And this affects ultimately the people, the taxpayers. We will have substandard roads, easily washed out by typhoons and floods, for example. In fact, in my province here in Albay, the past three weeks, we had three typhoons that ravaged our home province. So we suffered uh, great losses because of typhoons. That's why it's very important that we always inspect where our money goes, that the procurement process of the government is fair, and that the suppliers that are hired that win contracts are delivering the service that we paid for. One of the principles for fair public procurement is competition. This means that eligible contractors and suppliers have fair chance of winning government contracts. And there's no monopoly of government contracts, either by corruption, or bribery. And we want to encourage the eligible, honest, and quality businesses and contractors to participate in government tenders and win government contracts for the benefit of the public. But this doesn't always happen. What stops honest and eligible bidders from bidding in government contracts, tenders? According to FGDs we conducted, plus some literature, some major reasons are the following. For one, too many competitors may lead to uncertain and problematic issues because increasing the number of bidders leads to lower procurement costs and resulting in lower profit margins for the winners, reducing the bidders' joining incentives. Two, there's a lack of trust in the integrity of the bidding process. So some bidders are afraid to join, thinking that they don't have a fair chance of winning. The unpredictability of the timeline. So the procurement process can take really long times, and this can affect the supply, the business, their logistics. And finally, slow processing of contracting stages. So there are bottlenecks. For example, delayed payments. This affects the bidders or the winning contractors' finances as well. Now, we have what we call the bid monotonicity principle, which states that for a bidder to join the procurement process, the expected utility or the gains has to be larger than the cost of participating in the bid plus the cost of acquiring the goods and services. With data and analytics, we want to reduce the cost of participating in the bidding process by providing them the key information requirements they need to make an immediate decision in the bid. Now in the Philippines, we have the Republic Act 9184, or the Government Procurement Reform Act, or GPRA, GPRA law for short, which outlines the details, the steps a government procuring entity must do to procure goods or services. Its implementing rules and regulations state that all procuring entities must post their tenders and award details in the Philippine Government E-Procurement System, or PhilGEPS. This information in turn is released by PhilGEPS in downloaded XLSX format, Excel file, in their open data page. But for now, this is temporarily inaccessible due to improvements and modernization. This is how the publicly available procurement data looks like. You know, for someone who has little to no data analytics or ICT background, it can get really intimidating. The file contains all procuring entities in the entire country. It has 40 columns. It can take up to 1 gigabyte per file. That's quarterly. And it's very difficult to download, especially if you have low bandwidth. So it can go as much as 1 gigabyte per file. So it can get really intimidating. It can slow down computers if it's not as fast or as well maintained. And the raw form is basically not really encouraging to look at if your goal is to inspect procurement information. The aim of this study is to use official Philippine procurement datasets from the PhilGEPS portal, the publicly downloadable ones. And then from that, we generate insights that answer the bidders' key information requirements to reduce their cost of bidding. And we want to help bidders formulate data-driven bidding strategies that are optimal to them. So, long story short, we want eligible bidders to join and non-eligible bidders to not join, to not waste their time and resources. The pilot area for this study is the province of Albay. It's over here. We have 19 local government units in this province. It's composed of 15 municipalities, 3 component cities, and 1 provincial government. For the methodology, we first conducted FGDs and interviews with businessmen and contractors in the province to identify their key information requirements. And then we downloaded, filtered, explored, visualized the PhilGEPS datasets according to the key information requirements. Now we examined the findings and we mapped them to the key information requirements. And then finally, we presented the findings to the contractors for validation and feedback. So here are the 6 key information requirements that we identified. So number 1, they're asking what are the local governments buying? What exactly are they buying? Number 2, how much are the local governments spending per contract or per item? 3, how long is the procurement process from posting of tender to contracting? 4, who are the current suppliers of the local governments? And then 5, how many bidders participate in every tender? And then finally, how long do governments pay awarded suppliers after a successful delivery? So of the 6, we were only able to answer 4 because of information and data restrictions. Using the statistical environment R, we filtered the PhilGEPS data to only contain the following. So we have only 19 procuring entities in the province of Albay. This resulted in 22,981 observations or transactions in our dataset. And out of the 40 plus columns, we only got 11 columns or variables because these are the only ones relevant to the questions. And the date time range is from 2016 to 2018 because at that time 2019 data is still not complete and 2020 data is not published because PhilGEPS is undergoing modernization. Answering key information requirement number 1. What are the LGUs in Albay buying? The top business category in the province is construction projects and materials based on the number of tenders posted, followed by food and catering services. We can see the bulk of the tenders of construction projects. It actually comes from the 3 cities and the provincial government. This is the number of tenders posted we are talking about. If the bidders want a view that focuses more on their specific business category, they can see which procuring entity posts the most tenders in this category. So for example, for agricultural products and equipment here in the last bar, we see that a lot of tenders comes from the city government of Legazpi and from the provincial government. If the business is from a certain local government unit and their services are geographically locked or limited, they can project this view to look at which business category has the most tenders in a certain place or city. So here, for example, in the city government of Legazpi, the last row, we can see that majority of the tenders are from construction projects and services, followed by office supplies, and then medicine. Here, for example, we see that the city of Legazpi, the one in the bottom, posts more medicine tenders compared to general merchandise. So if I were in this city and my business category is medicine supply, so I would want to inspect if I can bid in the city of Legazpi's contracts. Answering the second key information requirement, how much are the LGUs in Albay spending? Here we can see that the average arithmetic mean per business category, it's highest in construction. So construction tenders tend to have this amount of approved budget of contract or ABC. A food tender, for example, this one. So a food tender tends to have around 180,000 pesos per contract award. So if I'm a bidder under this business category, I would more or less expect this amount per contract. We can also project the data to see which local government unit has the highest average ABC, approved budget of contract per item. So for construction projects, for example, we can see that the highest average amount per line item, this is per line item, goes to the province of Albay, the provincial government. Now remember last time, the most frequent tender for construction is posted by Legazpi City, but the highest budget per item is with the provincial government. So here is another view. Now, if you're concerned with a certain local government only, if your services is geographically locked, we see that the average approved budget of contract ABC per line item is issued by the provincial government. So this one, the top. We were also able to generate a more granular graph for the average budgets per item. So like this one is for the construction business category. So we generated this kind of graph for every business category and presented it to the suppliers, to the business sector that we work with. Now, for this, for example, the average ABC per item highest goes to the province of Albay, with an average of 9.8 million per line item, followed by the municipality of Daraga. We were also able to generate value frequency charts. So here we can see that construction projects are high value, high frequency, so meaning they have a lot of tenders, more tenders, and more budget compared to the others. Removing the construction category, we see that the next high value, high frequency is catering services and vehicles. But vehicles is a bit low frequency, high value but low frequency. And the lowest value, low frequency are printing service and printing and advertising services. Answering key information requirement number 3. How long is the procurement process in Albay? Here we see the number of tenders posted by month. So we can observe that the second half of the year, the tenders posted tend to increase. This flat line here is a special case because this was election period, and during election periods, government entities cannot procure during this period. Here we can see that the complication in the procurement process occurs in the issuance of notice to proceed phase, this stage. So some issue the notice to proceed early, some very late, and also we can see that construction projects tend to take longer times than other business categories. Now, from the data, we were also able to extract the average number of days it takes for every stage in the procurement process. So, for example, if I'm in the agriculture sector, or my business is in the agriculture business category, it takes 8 days, an average of 8 days from the date of publish to pre-bid, and closing date 1 day, and then it takes 11 days from there to issue for the government to issue an award, and then another 17 days for the publication of date of award, from the publication of the award, and then the notice to proceed tends to be issued earlier than the publication of award, and finally it takes 48 days to finish an entire contract if you win the bid. Now finally, answering the key information requirement number 4, who and how many are supplying the local government units in Albay? This is the ratio of the number of tenders to the number of unique suppliers. So in the province, we saw that there are more construction tenders, but there's also more suppliers. For medical supplies, for example, this one over here, there are relatively lower number of tenders compared to the high number of unique suppliers. For vehicles and printing services, we see that there's a lot of tenders posted compared to the number of unique suppliers. So if you are in this business category, you might want to consider bidding on government projects. We see that the PhilGEPS dataset can answer key information requirements 1 to 4. But how about key information requirement 5 and 6? Unfortunately, the existing PhilGEPS dataset does not have the number of bidders in their public dataset. But we can use this as a policy recommendation to release the number of bidders per tender as well. So to conclude, using the publicly available PhilGEPS data, which is something that's mandated by the implementing rules and regulations of the GPRA law of the Philippines, we can answer 4 out of 6 key information requirements of bidders. Transparency encourages bidders and it increases their trust in the system. There are existing policy in the Philippines that mandates the release of procurement data, but the challenge is analyzing it and making sense out of this data into a useful format. And analytics and visualization can help address this problem. Now, in our study, 20 over 25 of the contractors of the attendees agreed with increasing confidence if the 4 key information requirements are constantly being disclosed. But the remaining 5 argued that the payment time is still the key information requirement, the last one, that they need the most to be confident with bidding or joining government procurement process. Finally, in 2018, my team and I, we launched OCDEX. It's a public analytics portal that automatically visualizes PhilGEPS procurement data for businesses and civil society organizations, for the public to access procurement data in a form that makes sense to them, that's easy to understand and draw insights from. We would like to acknowledge the cooperation and support of the following in this study. So the Albay Chamber of Commerce and Industry, independent contractors and business owners in Albay, Philippines, who helped us with this study. LayerTech Software Labs, the lead organization for this study, and OCDEX development. And HIVOS, their Open Up Contracting Program, LayerTech's partner and funder. Thank you very much for listening. Please feel free to email freysangil@gmail.com for questions. Thank you very much.